The contractions started at midnight. There was no one to call. No one to hold my hand. No healer, no midwife, no familiar face in the darkness. Just me, a dying candle, and the cold stone floor of a one-room cottage at the edge of Ashford village. My name is Soren Vale. 4 months ago, I was the Omega consort of King Kael Ashford of the Valdris Empire. Tonight, I was nothing. An exile. A secret. A problem that had been quietly removed. I pressed my back against the wall and breathed in, out, in, out. The pain came in waves, each one worse than the last. I had no medicine, no warm water. Nothing I had prepared was enough for this moment, but I was still here. Still breathing, still fighting because I had to be 300 miles away. In the golden halls of Valdris Palace, the celebration had already begun. I know this because Finn told me later. My only friend, a palace servant who had risked everything to stay in contact with me after my exile. The only person who had slipped me letters through a network of traveling merchants. The letter had arrived 2 weeks before the babies came. 3 words, "She is pregnant." I had read those words sitting on the same cold floor where I now labored alone. I had folded the letter carefully, placed it under my pillow, and cried until I had nothing left. Lady Lyra. Voss, noble, beautiful. Beta, everything the court had always wanted for their king. Everything I was not. Kael had chosen her 3 months after my exile. The announcement was swift, the engagement even swifter. And now, on the very night I screamed into the darkness of a village no one cared about. He was raising a glass of champagne to her. I will not lie. There were moments that night when I wanted to give up. The pain was unlike anything I had ever known. My body felt like it was splitting in two. The candle flickered. The wind pushed through the gaps in the walls. I was shaking so hard my teeth rattled, but then I heard it cry. Small. Furious. Perfect. I looked down with tears streaming down my face and saw the most beautiful thing I had ever seen in my life. A boy, tiny fists, dark hair, and eyes even then barely open that were the exact shade of gray as his father's. I pressed him against my chest. My whole body was shaking. "Hello," I whispered. "I have been waiting for you." I did not know there was a second baby until 20 minutes later. The second wave of pain hit so suddenly I gasped. My arms tightened around the boy automatically. Protective, fierce, and then another cry, even smaller, even more furious. A girl, she had my eyes. Dark violet, searching, already looking at the world like she was trying to understand it. I laughed, an exhausted, broken, disbelieving laugh. "Twins," I whispered to the empty room. "Of course you are twins." I held them both against me, one on each side. Their warmth was the only warmth in that entire cottage outside. The wind howled 300 miles away. A king toasted his future, and here, in the dark, I made my children a promise. "I will never let anyone hurt you," I said quietly. "Not even him." I named them that night. The boy, Zane, strong, stubborn. A name for someone who would never bow. Easily the girl. Luna, bright, perceptive, a name for someone who would light up every room she entered. I held them until the candle burned out completely, until the cottage was dark and cold and silent, until both babies were sleeping against my chest, their breath warm and even and real, and I allowed myself exactly 1 hour of grief. Asterisk. Soren screamed alone in the dark tonight. If that broke your heart even a little, you belong here. Subscribe so you never miss what happens next. 1 hour to think about the SL celebration happening without me. 1 hour to remember how Kael's hands had felt in mine. 1 hour to mourn the life I had believed in. Then I stopped. I wiped my face, straightened my back, looked down at the 2 sleeping faces pressed against me. "All right," I said softly. "It is just us now." Chapter 2 for years is a long time. Long enough to learn that you are stronger than you believed. Long enough to stop crying every time you see a gride man in the village market. Long enough to build something small but real. Ashford village was not much. A trading post, a market, a handful of families who minded their own business. Perfect for someone who needed to disappear. I opened a small healing shop in my 2nd year. Herbs, remedies, basic medicines for common ailments. I had learned enough in the palace to be useful. And useful people are rarely questioned. By year 4 I was known simply as Soren the Healer. No last name, no title, no history. Just a quiet Omega with 2 remarkable children and a life that was modest but entirely mine. Zane was for years, old and already exhausting. He had his father's jaw, right down to the stubborn set of it when someone told him something he did not want to accept. I had looked at that jaw every single day for 4 years and loved it, and ached over it in equal measure. "Why can't I climb the fence?" he demanded one morning, hands on his hips, gray eyes narrowed. Because the fence is there to keep the goats in, I said patiently. Not for you to practice falling off. I wasn't going to fall. You fell yesterday. That was different. How was it different, Zane? He thought about this very seriously for a moment. I wasn't ready yesterday. I pressed my lips together to hide my smile. Go eat your breakfast, he stomped off, deeply offended by the unfairness of the universe. Luna was quieter, more watchful. She had a habit of sitting beside me in the evenings and asking questions I was not prepared for. Papa, she said one night, looking up from the flower she was pressing between 2 book pages. Why don't we have a father? My hands stilled on the herbs I was sorting. Some families have one parent, I said carefully. Some have 2. Some have more. We have each other. That is enough. She considered this. Her violet eyes were serious and searching. Zane says our father is a king. I set down the herbs very slowly. Where did Zane hear that? He says you have a ring hidden under the floorboard. He says it has a crown on it. He says only kings have rings like that. I closed my eyes briefly. Of course, Zane had found it. We do not talk about that, I said quietly. Do you understand? Luna was silent for a moment. Then she reached over and put her small hand on mine. It is okay, Papa, she said softly. We do not need him. That was when I understood. My daughter, at 4 years old, was already trying to take care of me. I pulled her close and held her tightly. No, I agreed quietly. We do not need him. What I did not know was that 300 miles away, things were falling apart. Lyra Voss had miscarried. 6 months after the engagement, quietly, painfully. The palace announcement had been brief and careful. The court had moved on quickly, because courts always do. Kael had not moved on. Finn's letters told me pieces of the story over 4 years, carefully worded, cautiously delivered through the same merchant network as always. The king who had always been cold had become colder. The king who had always been controlled had become hollow. He gave orders, he attended meetings, he ruled with precision, but he did not smile, he did not laugh. He walked through his palace like a man searching for something he could not name, Finn wrote. He still keeps your portrait in his private study. He turned it to face the wall, but he never removed it. I read that letter twice, then I burned it. I could not afford to feel sorry for him. I had 2 children to feed and a shop to run, and a life to protect. Whatever Kael Ashford felt in his empty palace was not my problem until the day it became my problem. It was a Tuesday, ordinary market day in Ashford village. I had sent Zane and Luna with our neighbor Mira while I restocked my supplies. I was arranging dried lavender bundles when the market went quiet, not slowly quiet, suddenly quiet. The way a crowd silences when something important arrives. I looked up. At the end of the market road stood 3 royal soldiers in Valdris Empire armor. They were scanning faces, methodical, trained, and behind them, still mounted on a black horse, wearing no crown but unmistakably a king, Kael Ashford. He looked older, harder. There were shadows under his eyes that had not been there 4 years ago. He was scanning the crowd with the focused patience of someone who had been searching for a very long time. My lavender bundles hit the floor. His gray eyes found mine. The world stopped. Kael has been searching for 4 years. Soren has built a whole new life. Should Soren run again or stand his ground this time? Comment yes, to stand or not to run. Chapter 3. I did not run. Not because I wasn't afraid, but because 4 years ago I had run and I had promised myself I would never run from him again. If this was happening, it would happen on my terms. Standing up, he dismounted slowly. His soldiers stayed back. A deliberate choice. He was coming alone. He walked toward me with the careful, measured steps of a man who knew one wrong move would end everything. I stood still, hands steady, back straight. Soren, just my name, nothing else. But in his voice I heard for years of every unsent letter, every unfinished apology. Every night he must have practiced what to say if he ever found me. Your Majesty? My voice was steady. I was proud of that. He stopped 2 feet away. His eyes moved over my face, reading, calculating. You are, well, he said. Finally, I am. You have been here for years. I have. I looked for you, he said. Something sharp moved through my chest. Not hard enough, I replied. The silence stretched between us like a wound neither of us knew how to close then. From the far end of the market road I heard running feet. Small, rapid, familiar. My blood turned cold. Papa. Zane's voice cut through the market noise like a blade. Papa, Mira said, there are royal soldiers and I want to see. He burst through the crowd and skidded to a stop beside me. 4 years old. Dark hair falling over his forehead. Small jaw set with its characteristic stubbornness. And eyes the precise, unmistakable gray of the man standing 2 feet away. The silence that followed was absolute. I watched Kael's face. I watched the exact moment he saw it. The hair, the jaw, the eyes, his own features reflected back at him in miniature. His entire body went still. The controlled king, the careful king, the king who never showed anything broke. It was not dramatic. It was quiet. The way a foundation cracks before a building falls, his hand came up slowly and pressed flat against his own chest. Soren. His voice came out stripped of everything. No authority, no control, just raw and wrecked. Is he? Yes. I said it simply. No cruelty, no satisfaction, just the truth. How old? 4? He made a sound I had never heard from him before. Low and involuntary, like something inside him had given way entirely. Zane looked between us with sharp gray eyes. Papa, he said carefully. Who is this man? Luna appeared a moment later, slipping her hand quietly into mine. She looked at Kael with her steady, searching gaze, taking him apart piece by piece the way she always did with things she was trying to understand. Kael looked back at her, something in his expression cracked open further. She has your eyes, he said. Yes. My voice stayed even. She does, and mine, yes. She has both. He stood very still for a long moment. The market was silent around us, everyone watching but pretending not to. Then Kael looked at Zane again. At the jaw, the hair, the stubborn set of small shoulders. You were pregnant, he said quietly. When I exiled you, you were already pregnant. 2 months? I said. I did not know yet. I found out 3 weeks after I arrived here. You did not tell me. I looked at him steadily. You had already chosen, I said. The words landed between us like stones dropping into still water. Heavy, final. True. He had nothing to say to that, because there was nothing to say. It was true, and he knew it, and I knew it, and the whole quiet market knew it. I lost her, he said suddenly. His voice dropped low. Lyra, she lost the baby. 6 months in. I looked at him for a long moment. I know, I said quietly. I am sorry. He blinked, clearly not expecting that. You are sorry, he repeated. Losing a child is not something I would wish on anyone. I kept my voice gentle, firm. Not even you. Chapter 4. Zane tugged my sleeve. Papa, he said in his most serious 4-year-old voice, is this man our father? The entire market held its breath. I looked down at my son. His gray eyes were steady and patient, waiting. He deserved an honest answer. Yes, I said quietly. He is. Zane turned and looked at Kael with the frank, unimpressed assessment that only a 4-year-old can deliver. You were not here, Zane said. Kael crouched down slowly until he was at eye level with his son. His voice when it came was rough at the edges. No, he said, I was not. Why? The question hung in the cold air between them. Simple, devastating. For years compressed into a single word from a child who deserved better than the answer available. Kael's jaw tightened. He looked up at me briefly. I gave him nothing. This was his answer. I made a mistake, Kael said finally. A very bad one. Zane considered this with his father's own gravity. Did you say sorry? He asked. Kael's throat moved. Not yet, he admitted. You should say sorry. Zane's voice was matter-of-fact. That is what Papa always says. When you make a mistake, you say sorry and then you try to fix it. Luna pressed closer against my side. Watching everything? Feeling everything the way she always did, Kael looked at his son for a long moment, then something in his expression shifted, softened, cracked, open at the edges in a way I had never seen from him before. You are right, he said quietly. I should. He asked to speak with me privately. I sent the twins back to Myra's cottage with strict instructions and 3 promises to return for dinner. Zane went reluctantly. Luna went quietly. Both looked back twice. Kael followed me to my small shop without speaking. I lit the lantern, straightened the herb bundles, made my hands busy because otherwise I did not know what to do with them. For years, he said from the doorway. Yes, you built all of this. People do what they must. He stepped inside slowly, looked at the shelves, the organized medicines, the small table where I did consultations, then his eyes found the children's drawings, pinned to the wall beside the window. 2 stick figures drawn in purple ink, labeled in careful child handwriting, Papa and me. He stared at them for a long time. They do not know what they are missing, he said quietly. Because you made sure they had everything? I turned to face him directly. Do not make this about what a good parent I am, I said. Tell me why you are here. He met my gaze, the same controlled gray eyes, but something beneath them had shifted, stripped raw. I am here because I was wrong, he said. About you, about what mattered. About what I was choosing when I chose Lyra. You chose stability, I said. A beta consort? No complications. No political risk. I chose fear, he said. That is the truth of it. I was afraid of how much you mattered to me. It was easier to remove you than to let you stay and risk losing you another way. I stared at him. That, I said slowly, is the most foolish thing I have ever heard a king say. Something flickered across his expression, almost a smile. Gone immediately. Yes, he agreed. It was the silence shifted between us. What about Lyra? I asked. Kael was quiet for a moment. We ended it 6 months after she lost the baby, he said. She asked me to. She said she could see I was somewhere else entirely. That I had always been somewhere else entirely. He paused. She was right. I nodded slowly. She deserved better than that too, I said. Yes, he agreed. She did. I looked at him carefully. The Hollow King, the man who had made every calculated choice and ended up with nothing that mattered. I cannot give you the 4 years back, he said. I know that. No, I agreed. You cannot. I cannot undo the exile. The fear. The night he stopped. His jaw worked, Finn told me. Eventually, about the night they were born, I said nothing. You were alone. He said, yes. In pain. Yes. And I was celebrating. I said simply, yes, I know. The word hit him like a physical blow. He absorbed it without flinching, because he had no right to flinch. I am sorry, Soren, he said. Not because I need something from you. Not because of the twins or the kingdom or the succession. Because what I did to you was wrong, and you deserved better. And I have known that for 4 years. Kael says he exiled Soren out of fear, not cruelty. Lyra ended things herself because she saw the truth. Does Kael's reason change how you feel about him? Does his reason matter? Comment below. Chapter 5. I believed him. That was the most complicated part. I had spent 4 years building walls and filling them with purpose and love and the ordinary. Beautiful work of raising 2 remarkable children. I had told myself I was done. I had meant it, and then he said, sorry, with his whole broken self, and I believed him. That did not mean it was enough. I believe you, I said, and I forgive you. Not because you deserve it yet, but because I have been carrying your absence like a weight for 4 years, and I am tired of the weight. He was very still. But hear me clearly, I continued. I am not the same person you exiled. I am not quiet. I am not small. I am not something you place and remove according to your plans. I know I am not finished. My voice stayed even. My children are the most important thing in this world to me. Before your title, before your empire, before anything you could offer, if you want to know them, you earn that slowly, consistently on their terms. Yes, he said immediately. And on mine, yes, I will not return to court. Not yet, maybe not ever. I live here. I work here. This is my life and I built it and it is good. He nodded once, accepting without argument. What do you want from me? He asked. I looked at him for a long moment. I want you to come back on Friday, I said. Not as a king. No soldiers. No royal insignia. Just as a man who wants to meet his children properly. You bring nothing. You demand nothing. You take whatever time they are willing to give you. Friday, he repeated. And Kael. I waited until his eyes met mine. If you miss a single Friday, if you cancel once without warning, if you make them hope and then disappoint them, I will not. You do not know that yet, I said quietly. Neither do I, but I am choosing to find out. Do you understand? Yes. His voice was steady, certain I understand. He left before the twins came home. I sat in my small shop as the afternoon light shifted and thought about what I had just decided. It was not forgiveness for his sake. It was not love restored. Not yet. Perhaps not ever in the same form. It was something more complicated and more honest than that. It was the decision of a person who had survived something terrible and come out the other side, still capable of choice. That felt like enough for now. Zane and Luna came home at sunset, loud and windswept and full of questions. Is he coming back? Zane demanded before his coat was even off. Yes, I said. Friday? What happens Friday? You get to talk to him. Ask him whatever you want. He will answer. Zane thought about this very seriously. I have a lot of questions. I know. I hid my smile. He knows that too. Friday came. Kael arrived exactly on time. No soldiers. No crown. Plain dark clothes and nothing else. He stood at my door like a man who had traveled 300 miles and would have traveled 300 more without complaint. Zane opened the door before I could. He looked up at his father with 4 years of unasked questions burning in his gray eyes. You came, Zane said. I said I would, Kael replied. Zane considered this for a moment. Then he stepped back and opened the door wider. Papa made breakfast, he said firmly. You can have some, but only if you answer my questions. Kael's expression shifted completely. Not the careful, controlled expression of a king managing a situation. A real smile, surprised and soft and entirely human. Deal, he said. Luna appeared behind Zane. She studied Kael for a long, quiet moment, taking him apart the way she always did, measuring, deciding. Then she held up the book she had been reading. I am reading about stars, she said seriously. Do you know about stars? Kael looked at her. Something in his face came completely undone. Not enough, he said honestly. Will you teach me? Luna considered this with great care. Then she stepped back to let him through the door. That small step, that quiet decision made by a girl who had spent her whole life hearing that she did not need a father. That was everything. We were not a family yet. We were the beginning of a decision. Fragile, honest, built on the understanding that some things broken cannot be fixed, only rebuilt differently. But when Zane grabbed his father's hand to drag him toward the breakfast table, and Luna settled beside Kael with her star book open on her lap, and Kael looked at me over their heads with an expression that said everything words could not yet carry, I thought, maybe differently is enough. Maybe differently is exactly what we all needed. What none of us knew yet was that the Empire had spent 4 years without a legitimate heir. And 2 children in a village called Ashford were about to change everything. Soren chose to let Kael try. Slowly, on their terms, Luna let him through the door. Zane made him earn breakfast. Was Soren brave or foolish to give him this chance? And would you watch part 2? The twins and the Empire? Comment yes for part 2.